He was the strongest wolf in the pack, but the night he refused to be like them was the night they made him walk alone. This is the story of a wolf who lost everything because he would not pretend to be something he was not. And what he found in that loneliness changed everything. Stay with me, because his journey might mirror yours more than you expect. High in the northern mountains where snow covered the peaks even in summer, and the wind carried the scent of pine and frozen earth, there lived a pack of wolves. They were 30 strong, led by a massive gray wolf named Fang, whose voice alone could shake the valley. Among them was a young wolf named Ash. He was born with silver-white fur and pale blue eyes that carried the color of winter itself. He was fast, strong, and sharp. By every measure, Ash should have been the pride of the pack. But Ash was different in a way no amount of strength could hide. He felt things the others did not. When the pack hunted, the other wolves moved with hunger and fierce focus. But when the chase ended and the prey fell, something inside Ash would tighten. A heaviness settled in his chest like a stone dropped into still water. He never spoke of it. He buried it beneath his fur, behind his teeth. Under every howl, he forced himself to join, but it grew louder with every hunt, and the pack was beginning to notice. "You hesitate," Fang said one evening, his golden eyes cold. "A wolf who hesitates is not a wolf. He is a shadow." The words cut deeper than teeth. Ash tried harder. He ran faster. He bared his fangs and threw himself into every hunt with a ferocity that left him shaking afterward, not from exhaustion, but from the effort of being someone he was not. The other wolves could smell the difference on him, the way animals smell rain before it falls. The young wolves pulled away during rest. The older wolves stopped inviting him to lead. Even his own brother, Stone, began sleeping on the far side of the den. One night after a hunt, a young wolf nudged him and whispered, "Why do you always look like that after a kill? Like something hurts?" Ash said nothing. His silence answered for him. Fang turned his massive head and stared at Ash without warmth. "If you cannot carry the weight of what we are," he said loud enough for every wolf to hear, "then perhaps you are not one of us." The pack went quiet. 30 wolves turned their eyes to Ash. In their gaze, he saw something worse than anger. He saw agreement. That night, Ash lay at the edge of the den, as far from the others as he could get without leaving entirely. The cold crept into his bones. He stared at the stars and whispered, "What is wrong with me?" The wind carried his words into the mountains, as if the world was listening, but had no answer to give. The next morning, Ash left, no announcement, no farewell. He rose before dawn and walked into the gray light. The snow crunched beneath his paws. The wind pressed against his chest as if trying to push him back. He did not look behind him. The first days alone were terrifying. He had never hunted without the pack. He had never slept without the warmth of other bodies beside him. Every sound made his heart pound. He grew thin. His ribs began to press against his silver fur. One night, caught in a blizzard, he crawled beneath a fallen tree and pressed himself against the frozen ground, shivering so hard his teeth cracked against each other. He closed his eyes and thought this might be where his story ended. Alone, starving, forgotten by a pack that had already stopped speaking his name. But morning came, and Ash was still breathing. He opened his eyes to pale sunlight filtering through ice-covered branches and realized something quiet and certain. He was alone. He was hungry. He was afraid. But for the first time in his life, he was not pretending. It began with small things. As Ash wandered through unfamiliar territory, he noticed what the noise of the pack had always drowned out. He could feel vibrations in the ground that told him when herds moved miles away. He sensed shifts in the wind that warned of storms hours before they arrived. He heard the silent crack of snow on a mountainside that meant an avalanche was forming. His sensitivity, the very thing that made him wrong inside the pack, was not weakness. It was a different kind of strength. One afternoon, he felt a deep rumble beneath his paws. He pressed his ear to the earth. Something was breaking on the slope above a narrow valley. He ran. In the valley below, he found them. A scattered group of wolves, not a pack, survivors. a limping old she-wolf with scars across her muzzle. Two young wolves barely passed their first winter. A mother with a single pup pressed against her belly. They saw Ash and tensed, but he did not bare his teeth. He lowered his head and spoke urgently. "The slope above you is breaking. Move. Now." The old she-wolf studied him with clouded but sharp eyes. Something in his voice, its raw honesty, its lack of performance, told her he was telling the truth. They moved. Minutes later, the mountainside collapsed, burying the exact spot where they had been resting. The ground shook, the air turned white, the young wolves trembled. Every single one of them was alive, because a wolf who felt too much had felt the mountain breaking before anyone else could. The old she-wolf walked to Ash. She was missing half an ear, and her left eye was blind. But her remaining eye was steady and knowing. "You feel things others do not," she said quietly. It was not a question. Ash lowered his gaze. "My pack called it weakness." She was quiet for a long time. Then she spoke. "Your pack measured every wolf by how well he could destroy. But there is another kind of strength, the kind that listens, it senses, that protects before danger arrives. They could not see it because it does not look like what they were taught to admire." She stepped closer. "You were not wrong, young wolf. You were in the wrong place. And there is a great difference between being broken and being surrounded by those who cannot see what you are." Ash stayed, not because he was asked, but because for the first time he did not have to hide. He became their warning. His senses kept them safe in ways teeth and muscle never could. He felt storms before they struck. He heard rivers rising before the water reached their den. He sensed predators approaching while they were still shadows on the horizon. The young wolves followed him not because he was the strongest or the loudest, but because he was honest. He did not perform. When he was afraid, he said so. When he was uncertain, he admitted it. And somehow that honesty made them trust him more deeply than any snarling pack leader they had ever known. Slowly, other lone wolves found them. Wolves cast out of their own packs for being too quiet, too gentle, too different. One by one they arrived, drawn by something they could not name. A feeling, a frequency, a sense that somewhere in these mountains there was a place where they would not have to pretend. Ash's group grew, not into a pack built on dominance and fear, into something rarer, a family built on truth. One evening, the old she-wolf sat beside him on a ridge overlooking the valley. The sunset painted the snow in shades of gold and amber. "Do you miss them?" she asked. "Your old pack?" Ash was quiet for a long time. "I miss belonging," he said. "I miss sleeping beside others without wondering if I am enough. But I do not miss pretending. I do not miss swallowing who I am just to be allowed to stay." He paused. The cost of leaving was loneliness, but the cost of staying was myself. And I have learned that no pack, no belonging, no acceptance is worth that price. The old wolf nodded slowly. "That," she said, "is the bravest thing a wolf can learn." Seasons turned, snow melted and returned. Ash never became the loudest wolf. He never learned to hunt without feeling. He never grew a harder heart, but he was no longer ashamed. One spring morning, the mother's pup, now fully grown, sat beside Ash watching the valley below. "Why did your old pack send you away?" she asked. Ash looked at her. This young wolf, who had grown up believing that feeling deeply was simply what wolves did. "Because I was different," he said, "and they believed different meant wrong. Do you believe that?" Ash watched the wind move through the valley, bending the grass in long silver waves. "I used to. I nearly destroyed myself trying to become what they wanted, harder, louder, colder. I tried to earn a place in a world that was never built for who I am." He turned to her. "But I learned something in the silence of walking alone. The ones who rejected me were not wrong for being who they were, and I was not wrong for being who I am. We were simply different. And the bravest thing I ever did was stop punishing myself for that difference." The young wolf leaned against his shoulder, and together they watched light spread across the mountains like a slow golden fire. And in that stillness, a truth settled over the valley like the first snow of winter. quiet, certain, and impossible to ignore. Not every wolf is meant for every pack. Some voices are too soft for ears that only value roaring. Some hearts are too open for dens that only reward hardness, and the world will not always understand you. It may turn its back and call you weak for the very things that make you extraordinary. That is the cost of being real. But here is what the mountain teaches every creature brave enough to walk its paths alone. The pack that rejected you was not your home. It was your lesson, and the loneliness you feared was not your punishment. It was the silence you needed to finally hear your own voice, the one you had been drowning out for years, trying to sound like everyone else. You do not need to be louder. You do not need to be harder. You do not need to bare your teeth and pretend that nothing touches you. You simply need to stop apologizing for being exactly what you are. Because somewhere past the exile and the silence and the long walk through the cold, there is a place where your difference is not a flaw. It is the very thing they have been waiting for.